What do you and I have to experience that could come anywhere close to comparing to that? We see ourselves as workers, but when you're in a leadership position, it's much more than that. It's not just doing work on a larger scale. So you really want to concentrate on being the same person when things are going well and when they're not. And if you want an example of extreme endurance and faith and belief, read more about Admiral Stockdale's captivity. And it's a real compliment in that environment to be described that way. Cool as icebox lettuce. But your motivation should be to make others better. How can you make them look great in front of their peers? Because if you worry about yourself, you're not developing anybody. So the team's missing something by you doing it that way. And for real change, doing means discomfort. Leaders are always tested. You have to overcome those tests. Who do you want to be, and are you doing what's needed to get there? That's the question Stoic philosopher Epictetus is asking us to consider, like looking in a mirror. Hi, I'm Mike Targus, former Marine, founder of Center Desk Leadership Coaching. Epictetus was a Greek born into slavery in what's now Western Turkey, lived in slavery in Rome, won his freedom, and then moved over to Greece after being expelled with all the other philosophers. He taught that freedom is not due to our circumstances, but how we react to them. And his view on philosophy was that it was a way of life, not just some theoretical background, maybe like a lot of people think of philosophy today. He said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. Most important decisions or commitments that you make are not easy. And this quote isn't about dreaming, it's about discipline. So let's revisit the definition of discipline. To train oneself to do something in a controlled and habitual way. You may know the story of Admiral James Stockdale. He was a naval aviator, a pilot, who was shot down over North Vietnam and spent almost 8 years in captivity in the Hanoi Hilton as a prisoner of war. Later awarded the Medal of Honor, he was the senior ranking prisoner, and he showed leadership throughout. He started his almost 8 years of captivity with a broken leg and a bone broken in his back. He talks a lot about reflecting on Epictetus from his education at Stanford University just 3 years prior to being shot down. Admiral Stockdale is quoted as saying, "I never lost faith in the end of the story." And there's more to that quote, but I really like that first part. I never lost faith in the end of the story. That's the same kind of story that you need to develop for yourself. He was tortured during his captivity, both physically and emotionally. And if you want an example of extreme endurance and faith and belief, read more about Admiral Stockdale's captivity. What's the definition of endurance? To suffer something painful or difficult patiently. To remain in existence, to last. Love that. Suffer patiently. Your struggle as a leader. It's hard for new leaders to place an importance on and really understand what it means to decide who you want to be as a leader, especially if you don't have somebody that's leading you down the road of your leadership journey or mentoring you, spending time with you. It may not be self-evident why you have to do this in the first place. It's only after you develop some time as a leader and interact with real people, with real problems, handle real risk with real financial implications, that you start to understand why this is important, why this self-identity is important for you to develop. And it's not just important for you to know who you are, but your people need to know who you are. You need both. And we can float when we're in a leadership position. We go into work, we handle tasks, we let the Outlook calendar drive our day and our week and maybe our month or even our year. We see ourselves as workers, but when you're in a leadership position, it's much more than that. It's not just doing work on a larger scale. You have to develop people and grow the team. You have to inspire people to be more themselves. It's not about you. So you have to decide, what kind of leader are you going to be? What do you stand for? And then show up and show people that's who you are. And here's a really important aspect of this that I hope you remember, write down, tell your friends. You have to be the same type of leader when things are going well as when the shit is hitting the fan. If people look at you and they know that you can't handle the pressure and they don't know who they're going to get when trouble shows up, you're failing them. So you really want to concentrate on being the same person when things are going well and when they're not. Determining who we are. So how do we actually do this? Well, here's a couple examples of deciding what kind of leader you're going to be. I want to be a calm leader in chaos. This is something that I try to do. I tried to do when I was in the Marine Corps, and it can be done. You need to train your nervous system. You need to train your brain to react to stress in a certain way. You got to know that you've been trained or you have the ability to handle situations, even difficult situations, when they present themselves. So, in a way, you could think of that as trusting your own abilities, self confidence, overcoming obstacles, difficult things over time to give you that self confidence. But you have to train yourself to react to these situations. Marine Corps has a book called Leading Marines. And in part of that book, they're telling a story about Tarawa. And one of the Marines describes his battalion commander as cool as icebox lettuce. And I've always thought of that over the years. I think that's a really kind of neat metaphor here to think about. And it's a real compliment in that environment to be described that way. Cool as icebox lettuce. Could people describe you that way? What was the environment that this battalion commander was operating in to be described that way? Well, in 1943, the Battle of Tarawa lasted 3 days. And in those 3 days, 1,009 Marines and sailors were killed, and another 2,101 were wounded. 3 days. And this guy's described as being cool as icebox lettuce. Think about it. What do you and I have to experience that could come anywhere close to comparing to that? You can do it. Another example would be you want to be the type of leader that develops people. How do you do this? Start by giving feedback every day, one-on-one feedback. And if it feels awkward, that's normal. That's how it's going to be until you get in the habit of doing it. Because what's going to happen is over time, if you're doing it right, you're going to get just really good positive feedback. Even if the person doesn't agree with what you're saying, given that feedback, you're going to be more comfortable in that dialogue. But seek out people to give them one-on-one feedback, especially when it feels awkward. Another way to think of it is get used to or get comfortable with talking to people about things that they do well and things that they can improve upon, and always be open to discussing the latter. Make your priority the success of the people in your team. Put yourself second, because their success is going to reflect on you anyway. But your motivation should be to make others better. How can you make them look great in front of their peers? 2001, I was at Fort Benning, and a buddy of mine, we were over at his house, bunch of Marines on an Army base. We were watching a football game, and we were talking about something, and he looks over at me and goes, "Mike, my new thing is give, give, give." And I don't think he really was thinking about it when he said that, or maybe he was, but that really stuck with me. Like, if you can have that sort of perspective on the way you conduct yourself around people, just give, not worry about what's coming back to you. What I found, and this was 2001, so 24 years ago, I've kind of tested that, and I can tell you that what you get back is tenfold what you put in. So focus outward, make people successful, focus on their struggles, and their success is going to reflect on you. Because if you worry about yourself, you're not developing anybody. So the team's missing something by you doing it that way. And then really, people can tell that that's your focus as well. But another aspect of focusing on other people is you're saying things to people. Hopefully you're saying things to people throughout the day and the week. And these things are really going to stick with people, particularly when they're one-on-one and they're focused on maybe when somebody tries something new. If you focus on them with that comment, I remember things that were said to me over the years in the 90s by influential people who I've never really forgotten that. So you're doing that too. When you're a leader, there's no idle talk. People are always listening. That's why it's important not to make jokes in bad taste, but it's also on the positive side, really can be an influential thing. And when people remember those things through over the years, they're also going to remember you. And that's influence. Next example, I want to be a leader that people trust. So if you want people to trust you, then your actions need to match your calendar. You actually need to do what you say you're going to do. And people need to see you doing these things. You need to be visible. Something I heard years ago, you vote with your time. Is so true. I love that expression. Where do you spend your time? Do you spend time? Do you make time to recognize people? If no, then you don't care to recognize people. There's no other way to say it. If you don't make 10 minutes a week to write recognitions or to write awards or whatever the case may be. If you don't do that, you don't care. And if you say, no, I do care, then you have to make time. Why aren't you making time? Another aspect of one-on-ones, first of all, you got to be doing one-on-ones. You need to talk to your people at least once a month. Probably every other week is better. It is better. But do you reschedule these things? Are these things the first thing to move when there's a schedule conflict? Sometimes you do have to move them, but what you have to remember, what you have to consider is what message are you sending to your people if you're always moving these one-on-ones around, or worse yet, canceling them? That is what we're talking about when we say that your actions need to match your calendar. Another way we say it would be your priorities match your calendar, match what you do with your time. Another aspect of trust is consistency. And I've talked about this a lot, is people need to know what they're going to get from you when you walk through the door when they do. And it's not a really unpopular leadership philosophy to try to keep people on edge. I don't believe in that. I think it's a bad idea. The more consistent you can be, the better. And one reason is psychologically, when there's inconsistency, that can trigger or does trigger anxiety. And that's, like I was saying, is if you believe that keeping people on edge is best, then you're going to have anxious people. Now, what good is that? They don't work harder that way. Correction, they do work harder on surviving. They don't go above and beyond. They don't take initiative and do the kind of things you really want a high-performance team doing. They're on the defensive. They're going to play it safe. And our subconscious is always watching for a threat. This is a survival instinct. Deep down, we see inconsistent behavior as danger. And it's things like that, then people are going to decide whether or not they trust you or not. Why does decide who you want to be and then act like it actually work? You and I, in our subconscious, we need consistency. This is called self-concept consistency. And think of it as if you have beliefs or you have desires for yourself to be a certain way, but then your actions are something else, you've experienced this. You have an uneasy feeling. So we have two choices to make. You're going to either change your actions to meet this identity or this vision of yourself, which is a positive, or you're going to slowly and quietly downgrade your actions. And that's why leaders drift. You say you want to be a certain way, but your actions don't prove that, or they're not in sync with that. And then your self-identity starts to get lower and lower and lower. Here's what you focus on. You have that vision of who you want to be, and you got to plan time to get there. Spend time on your priorities. Execute the plan. Do those one-on-ones. Read more. Study more. Spend time around high-performing leaders. Find a mentor. Get a coach. And then as you're implementing this new leadership approach at work, observe how people are reacting to you. Is there some way to measure results? You're not going to be able to measure how people feel about you, but are there metrics in your team where you might be able to associate that with your leadership? One of them being attrition. Are people staying with the team? Are they leaving? And another good one is, are people taking initiative? And the way you judge initiative, and if you're having a direct impact on that, is you will need to be involved in less. And you should be content to be involved with less because your people are handling it. And that's more of a feeling than measurement, really. So you can see there's several areas that you can look at. You want to try to be as objective as possible. How do you do that? Just try to distance yourself, take a step back, and try to look at yourself through your own eyes. And try to empathize with your people. What are they feeling at work? Do they enjoy being part of the team? Do they feel productive? Are they joking around with each other? Do they seem to be having fun with each other? And are they getting things done? Are things getting better? One quick tip on that is people are going to really enjoy working on what they think is important, not necessarily if you are the only one that thinks it's important. So if you can align people's interests with what you need to get done in your team, that's the magic solution. Then it's just a matter of empowering people and enabling them. And then the sky's the limit. So the quote from Epictetus, it's not just fluff. It's not encouragement. It's recalibration. Having the vision and then doing the things needed to get there. Decide that you're going to achieve this, that you're going to be this new type of leader. You got to convince yourself. You're going to rewire your brain, your nervous system. You're going to believe it. Your subconscious, where your beliefs are stored through consistent training and repetition, you're going to really build those beliefs differently. These are habits. You need habits. Right around 66 repetitions, you can build a habit. Some a little bit more, a little bit less. Read Atomic Habits by James Clear. Small habits repeated consistently can compound into total identity change. Look into how he talks about getting 1% better a day for a year. So here's the challenge. Epictetus didn't say, envision the new leader that you want to be, and hopefully it'll happen. No, he said, say to yourself what you should be, and then do what you need to do. And the second part of that is where most people tap out, the consistent doing. And for real change, doing means discomfort. Some aspects of it will be enjoyable and fun, but don't count on it. Key part, begin. Start today, start tomorrow. Small things, set yourself up for success. Here's the challenge that I'll leave you with. What type of leader do you want to be? Write that down. Have that be the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning. Make a poster. Put a sticky note by your alarm or your phone. Be reflective. Think about what you're doing. Sit quietly in the morning and at night. Journal. Even if it's voice notes on your phone, talk to yourself about how things went. How are you progressing on your vision? Have pictures of these historical figures or people that you respect. Something to reference. Something to keep that vision fresh in your mind. Think in terms of years of development. Remember, it's not about dreaming, it's about discipline. Deciding who you are and then acting like it. Hey, if this hit home, it's because leadership is about being better, achieving that vision for yourself. Let me know in the comments what you're working on. I'd love to highlight that in another video. If somebody needs to see this, please forward it to them. Around here on this channel, I talk about leadership the way we lived it in the Marine Corps and now in organizations like the one you're in. My approach, mission-focused, practical, the small things. Things that you take for granted in leading people, you don't always hear people talking about. That's what we're going to talk about. We're pursuing understanding of ourselves, reinforcing our identity, focusing outward. We're developing a strategic and tactical mind so we can deal with the pressures that oppose us when we try to lead a certain way. Leaders are always tested. You have to overcome those tests. So if you're a leader and you're done with the one-size-fits-all generic leadership advice, this channel's for you. If you're ready to build trust, momentum, and clarity in your team, hit subscribe. Every video I make is designed to give you something tactical, something operational, something strategic, something for today, something for this year, and something for the future. I also have a series of videos that are made for winding down at night, developing that strategic and tactical mind, very calm, meditative type videos, really audios. I got more information in the description. Until next time, decide who you are and then act like it.